I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start recording. So Hannah, if you could just manage the chat, and Hillary, there may be some questions for you, but and if anytime you want to chime in, please do so. Oh, it looks like it's recording, so we're good to go. Okay, let me share my screen. Hannah, it looks, and we're recording. Okay. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. We are a little bit behind tonight, or right on time, however you look at it. So glad that you're here tonight. My name is Beth DeGrace. I'm the Assistant Director of Special Services here in Mercer Island. And I'll introduce the others here with us if you just want to wave tonight. We have Hannah Bolivar, also an Assistant Director of Special Services. Hannah, you want to wave? And we have Hillary Johnson. She is one of our early childhood special education teachers here tonight. So thank you so much for being here. Tonight what we'll do is we'll run through just a presentation giving some information for you all. And then as you have questions, please feel free to share your questions in the chat. And as soon as we're done with the presentation, we will go through the chat. We also have Andres Ronzer here, and I do not, he turned his camera off, which is great, but he has been the mind behind getting all of us up and running, and troubleshooting. So thank you, Andres, if you can hear me. So tonight we are focusing on early childhood. And our objective tonight is to really think about, as we enter this school year, what does early childhood special education look and sound like? I know there's a lot of questions around that, so we're hoping to capture some of those questions and answers. And one of the things that we want to keep in mind, there's a lot of things that we have to think about, and our priority, Mercer Island School District is the students. Students are the priority. And so we just want to make sure we keep the main thing. There are students the main thing as we have these conversations, as we think about education during these times. So as you probably know, our superintendent made the decision, along with the board, to begin the school year in a red learning plan. And so what that means is students will begin the school year virtually. And what is also okay to consider at this time is in-person appointment services. So while the red learning plan is virtual, there is an opportunity to consider in-person appointment services within this particular model. And so what that might look like is students from early childhood who may need some more in-person appointment services. Those are individual services. In the red, in-person appointment services are for individual learning, because we're starting virtually. And so it might be a service or two, and it's just an IEP team decision. Some other students in the transition program, students who really need some adaptive assistance that might require an in-person situation. Even for some academics, it could be that it requires in-person. Social emotional, maybe related services like speech, communication, occupational therapy, physical therapy. So these are all conversations that an IEP team can have in order to consider any in-person appointment services. In the Orange Learning Plan, we are able to start bringing some small groups of students back to school. So whereas I'm going to bounce back to the red, whereas in the red, which is where we're starting, there is an option for in-person appointment services. It's individual. And as we look at L&I guidance, we look at the Department of Health guidance, the county guidance, and we're able to safely shift into the orange, we start to consider groups of students. It might be 3 students, it might be 5 students, but we start to consider groups of students in the orange. So when you hear, I'm sorry, I want to move this over a little bit. When you hear in-person appointment services, there's a series of questions an IEP team will walk through while making that decision. And those questions, these are the guiding questions. And of course, we look at the bigger, broader picture of each student as we walk through these particular questions. So we talk about, does the IEP team believe that the student can meaningfully benefit from remote learning? For all services? For some services? And in some cases, maybe it might be not any services. But we really want to think about, what does this mean for each particular student, whereby we have these conversations. The next question is, does the IEP team believe that it is necessary and essential that the student receive a particular service as an in-person non-group IEP service? Just reiterating that in the red, these in-person appointment services are non-group services, they're individual. And then, can the team safely provide in-person services in accordance with the Department of Health and CDC guidelines? So this question, you might think right away, well, my child's not going to wear a mask. My child is not going to stay 6 feet apart. And that would not necessarily decline a student from in-person appointment individual services. So what we do have nurses who will be at those IEP meetings to really think about who that particular child is and what kinds of safety pieces we need to put in place to be able to serve an essential in-person appointment service. So those are some of the guiding questions that we wanted to share with you that we think through as we're making these decisions. So what can we expect for students with an IEP in the red learning model? Implementation of IEPs as they are written. A dedicated special education case manager, and that is the student's special education teacher. Open two-way communication, and set predictable times for classes and extra support for asynchronous learning activities. So specially designed instruction in this environment that we are facing right now in the red virtual environment with maybe a sprinkle of in-person appointment individual services, what could this look like? We'll continue to provide a learning grid as an extension of the learning that aligns with individual goals. We will continue to provide parent support, whether that be in written communication, virtual trainings, check-ins, work boxes. Again, individualized learning activities and materials for students, synchronous groups, circle time, parallel play time, and other small groups, and one-to-one learning sessions. And all of these particular items are individualized based on the student needs. But these we wanted to share with you are some of the ways that we will be providing specially designed instruction during this red model, the virtual model. Implementation of IEPs, as I mentioned earlier, under the Red Learning Model, IEPs will be the guiding document for students receiving special education services. And the reason why this is important to share with you is because last year, in the spring, when we were faced with the school closures, we shifted to continuity of learning plans. Where specially designed instruction did occur, it may have looked a little bit differently. So this year, in the fall, we will be implementing the IEPs as written. And again, in the variety of ways that I shared with you, I think it was just the last slide. Any changes or amendments to the IEP will need to be facilitated by a special education case manager, the special education teacher assigned to your student. And that teacher will work with the family and the team to come up with a mutually agreeable time to have conversations about amending or any changes to the IEP. And there may be some amendments that need to be made in the virtual environment. And so I just wanted to share that with you. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to your case manager. So the case manager, I'm sorry, these pictures here are kind of in the way. So the case manager is a special education teacher overseeing implementation of the IEP from day to day. The case manager is your first point of contact regarding concerns or questions about the IEP or to request a team meeting. All staff return to school. All staff return to school later next week and will be responding to messages and reaching out to families. So just wanted to share that with you that staff, some are in earlier than the actual start date, but their start date is next week, later in the week, and they will start to return emails, messages once they are back. Open and frequent communication. Our teachers are committed to both open and frequent two-way communication with students and families. Progress reporting will occur in conjunction with trimester changes, and you can always email or contact your student special education case manager with questions or concerns. We know that there are a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, and we just want to make sure that you know to please reach out to your case manager, the special education teacher. The early childhood special education teacher contacts I wanted to share with you here, and I will also put them in the chat as soon as we're done with the presentation. So I will make sure to do that for you all so you have those contacts. And upcoming dates. So we have some IEP meetings that will begin to convene as early as next week. We have on August 31st, the week of that first week there, August 31st, family check-ins and connections with case managers. September 1st, we will be having a virtual open house and further details will follow. And September 8th is the start of school for early childhood. So that is a brief presentation to share with you some more details about the early childhood program as it relates to the virtual start of the school year. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can look at questions and answer your questions. Please feel free to ask away. We are here for you. We will likely still end at the same time tonight. We'll see how many questions come in. We could do an extra 5 minutes, but I just wanted to share that with you. We'll do another 15, 20 minutes. And any additional questions, you can always reach out to myself. You can always reach out to Hillary and to April. If it's an IEP specific question, always reach out to your case managers. So let me stop sharing.
Okay. So one of the questions we have is about options for daily in-person appointments. And we have a variety of different in-person appointments that can happen. Some teams might determine the student needs to come in once a week for 30 minutes. Some teams might determine a student needs to come in an hour every day. It's going to look different for every student, and those will all be IEP team decisions. So, so hopefully that answers that question. And then there was another question about basically our district's priorities around which students should be coming in first. And we want you to know that Superintendent Kolaski's priority is bringing in our youngest, most vulnerable learners first, which does include early childhood. So we want to get those students in as soon as possible. That is our priority right
now. Hillary, I know you were just emailing with Andreas about the iPad pickup. Do you have information on that?
About the missing iPads?
Maybe it was missing iPads. I just saw something, so I didn't know if there was an answer to that. The question is iPad pickup applicable for ECSE kids too?
I believe it is, because we just sent the roster to Andrew so that he would know how many iPads need to be put aside for our program. So yeah, the early childhood program, you can go pick up an iPad for your child.
There was also a question about how they will learn who their case manager is. Hillary, do you know when that information is going out?
Yeah, so your case manager will be contacting you if they haven't already when we are officially kind of back on our contract, which is next Thursday.
This is another one for you, Hillary. So the schedule that we have, there's maybe this is from Julie. Mm-hmm. So yeah, hi, and Julie. So she was just wondering about, I'm assuming, the ABCD.
Oh, for the groups, mm-hmm. It's a little bit different because instead of calling them AM and PM, because the timing is different for the red learning, we just kind of group students into 4 different groups, A, B, C, D. If you'd like, I could, if we have time, I don't know if we do, Beth, but I can go just kind of through the schedule and talk about what's going to happen during each of those times.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can pull that up. There's another question about bus service, and with in-person appointment services, we will be providing bus service. There's a question about criteria used to decide when kids can come back on site. There is a flow chart, I believe. Is it from the Department of Health? And that we will be following, as well as other guidance. But I think that flow chart is something that we will be following.
Melissa, for your question, are you wondering when all students will be coming back, or is your question more about specifically for your child? If you want to put that in the chat, I can maybe give a better answer to your question. And yes, there's another question about iPads. If you do need a district provided iPad, those can be available. And yes, so when kids are going to be coming back, I believe Superintendent Kolaski reviews every 3 weeks and determines if we are able to move to a new phase of learning, such as orange or yellow. So those, believe it's every 3 weeks that will be reviewed.
It looks like there's a few iPad questions that we may need to capture and get some answers to.
Hillary, is there any additional technology or software needed for the iPads other than Zoom?
No, Zoom is the only platform. Oh, and Seesaw, but that can go, it's pretty easy to download. Those are the only 2 platforms we use in early childhood.
Okay. I'm going to pull up the schedule here. All right. Hillary, do you want to take the lead on that?
Yeah, so basically, we're going to have 4 different groups here, and 2 of the groups will be running at the same time because it'll either be taught by myself or April, the other special ed teacher. And so let's take, for example, Group A. If your child's in Group A, they would start circle time at 9:30, and that'll look kind of like going over practicing saying hello, greetings, focusing on like what we're learning about. We often have a speech group during that time, things like that. That's what's happening during circle time, music, reading a book. And then from there, we're just going to move just directly into, it'll either be a small group activity, which will look like we're all going to do a craft together, you know, and maybe Miss Heidi is demonstrating some fine motor skills that we're working on, or it'll look more like parallel play. And what the idea behind parallel play is that we just sort of have our screen open and your child has their screen open, and we're just kind of playing and just talking about what we're doing. So let's say, you know, I'm gonna, you know, do Play-Doh that day. And so I'm just gonna grab my Play-Doh, and you can grab, your child will have their Play-Doh. It's gonna come in their work box. And then we're just gonna play with Play-Doh, and I'm gonna talk about what I'm doing. I'm gonna be asking them questions. It's gonna be a little more low key. Whereas the small group is designed to be very more structured and following like a sequence of steps. And so those will flip one or the other every day. And then after that, your child will have a break. So that's when we're encouraging them to go outside maybe. We might talk about like, I'm gonna go outside and I'm gonna go for a walk, or maybe you're gonna go outside and you're gonna ride your tricycle. And that'll just be kind of like a break time for the kids. And then we're all gonna come back and we're gonna do a snack all together. And so we're just gonna encourage, you know, to set up your camera at the dining table or in the kitchen, wherever your kid likes to eat. And we're just gonna have a little snack together, talk about what we're eating, things like that. And then from there, we're gonna move into our second step lesson, which is our social emotional curriculum. And that's where we're gonna be talking about feelings and emotions, just things like that. And then from there, we're gonna go into the paras will do a read aloud where they're gonna read a book. And then after they read their story, they're going to do some other sort of activity. It might be music time. It might be a science experiment. It might be just, we're kind of leaving it open-ended for whatever they want to try. So basically your child is doing kind of online from 9:30 till about 11:15, which does seem like a lot. So we're encouraging, like, if you need to take a break, come back when you can, things like that. But the idea is like to kind of flow kind of more compacted instead of kind of going on and off camera throughout the day. And so then, for example, if your child's in group C or D, they would just have like a later start time. So they would start at noon would be their circle time, and they would follow that same schedule that I just mentioned that group A and B went through. So Julie, for your child, he's in group D, and so his start time would be at noon, and you just kind of follow that that schedule there. And then when you get to 2 o'clock, the one-on-one sessions with students and parents, that's just kind of the time we set aside for us to work one-on-one with you or with your child. That's when we're going to be doing check-ins, things like that. So that's just kind of, we're basically telling you when you can expect having those times. And then there's an open office hour at the end of my day from 3:30 to 4, and that's when it's just open for you to, you know, pop in and ask a question if you have anything like that, or yeah, it's just kind of open for anything that you might need during that half hour.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Then right before we answer some questions here, do you want to just swing through this learning grid idea?
Yeah, so the learning grids you received in the spring, and those were there were a lot of activities that were on those learning grids. They were pretty full, kind of targeting every domain. And since we're doing more kind of live teaching, we're going to make the learning grids a little short, a little smaller than they were in the springtime. So we're going to be providing 1, maybe 2 activities every day, and then on Wednesdays when there's no live sessions, we're going to just be providing more activities, probably more filmed things. If you remember, kind of like usually Miss Heidi and Miss Laurie, they always did like an activity where they'd film what they were doing. So you can expect at least some sort of activity for you to do on those Wednesdays when we don't have any live teaching going on.
Thank you. Hannah, I think there are some things in the chat.
Yeah, there's a question about flexibility. So if, you know, as many of us are double working families, and how are we going to manage this, myself included. So what should a parent do if they don't know if their student's going to be able to make all of the learning times?
I would say it's okay. I think, you know, it's helpful to communicate to us what you feel like is manageable for your family, just so we can prepare ahead of time, knowing like your child's going to be attending. So these are the things we're going to be targeting. Just have that communication with your case manager. Just let us know what's working, what you don't think is going to work, and then we can just work around that.
And there's some other ways, So if that synchronous time is not working, if it's just too long or something like that, there's other ways to approach the goals that your child is working on, and that could be through a work box. It could be through a one-to-one session. It could be there's several different angles that we can take and approach it. So communication is great. It will be really helpful to help us make sure that we're meeting the needs.
There's a question about what group a particular student is in. Do you know when that information will go out, Hillary? Or did it go out already?
If you have not received that information, it should be coming out by next Thursday, I believe.
So we'll try to get it out. We'll get it out earlier than that. So just we'll get it out earlier than that. There's a question about the work boxes. We would provide the work boxes for you all.
And we can talk a little bit about the work boxes, just because I know for new families, they probably don't know what that is, but it's a box, and the idea is that they're going to be filled with materials for your child to use during our live sessions, like the small group times. And so we want to fill the boxes with bags that are labeled like Monday small group or Thursday small group. So you just have to pull out a bag and all the materials are ready. Could be like paper, glue sticks, whatever you need for your child to participate in, like the craft we're doing, things like that. So it just has materials that you can use at home, that you might need, that we use frequently in the preschool, and that we're going to be using just kind of throughout the year. And then we're going to be replenishing those work boxes as we kind of move through the weeks and using the materials. They'll be sent back to the school, and then we'll refill them with materials to go back out to you for like the next couple weeks and the activities that we're doing.
There is a question about how to pick them up. I think that is to be determined, but we will get that information to you as soon as possible.
There's a question about when IEP meetings will start happening, and some might happen next week or the week after. We have a lot of IEP meetings that are going to happen before the start of school, so stay tuned. Your case manager will reach out before the start of school to hold a meeting.
Any other questions popping up?
I think we got all of them.
So we have just a few more minutes. I just want to thank everyone again for your flexibility. Hannah and I were on the webinar at 5 o'clock and we were ready to go, just making sure we knew the technology. So thank you. We've been made to make quite a few pivots. So thank you for making another pivot and shift and for being here. It is also recorded. So if you missed some of it, be sure to, actually, I believe Dr. Booby will be sending out an email to our families, giving all of the links of the webinars that have occurred last night and tonight. So, so that will be in your hands soon. If you missed part of this or want to listen to it again. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. It is an exciting start to the school year for sure. And I think that the early childhood team has created wonderful opportunities to be able to meet the needs of the students, a variety of ways to be sure to meet the needs. So it's very exciting, and we love our early childhood team. They're amazing. And with that, Hillary, do you have some parting words tonight?
I'll just say that, I mean, I miss all of the kids and I really wish we could be back in regular school. And so it'll be hard starting the year remotely, but I'm encouraged with like some of these new ideas and experience that we had in the spring under our belt that it's gonna be a lot smoother. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing all their smiling faces, even if it's on screen.
Thank you all for joining us, and we really appreciate all the questions and we just all this communication that we're having with you. So keep asking questions, keep reaching out. We just we're here to support you, and we're all in this together.
I saw Heidi. I saw Heidi and Carol. If you wanna wave or just say hello. I pulled them over. Well, we're very excited. So thank you so much for being here, and please just let us know your questions. We are here for you. We know there are a lot of questions, and we just want to make sure that there's just open communication, and we're ready to go. So thank you.